Yeah.
Excuse me, this was just a better game. So, all right, we can move on, man. We're gonna move on to another subject. So, we've been watching some Netflix stuff, and what you want to do? You want to do the movie first or the show?
We can get the movie out of the way
All
real
right.
quick and get to the show.
So we've been watching some Netflix stuff, and I was flipping through, and they Underworld is starting to make a resurgence on popularity of people that probably ain't seen it or ain't seen it in a long time. I remember going. I remember seeing the original at the theater and really enjoying it. And I actually saw part two at the theater as well, and I really enjoyed it. But I did not see part three, Rise of the Lycans. And that's what we're going to review because we both watched Rise of the Lycans just because I ain't seen it so long.
Well,
What?
part zero, technically.
Okay, it's a prequel. It's a prequel to where the backstory where they kind of talked about in the first Underworld. The first Underworld, it starts off with Celine, and I gotta say it like that. But anyway, it started off with Celine telling her story, and you see all these other characters, Victor, Lucian, and telling you about this war between the vampires and the Lycans, which are werewolves. How did this? They kind of give you a brief how this story, how this war started. Like I remember hearing about this movie, and only thing was really appealing was vampires against werewolves. I'm in. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It's like I didn't really know nothing about the story nor occurred. It just vampires against werewolves. Cool, 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 cool. Usually you see
Right.
vampires, against humans. You don't see vampires versus werewolves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which gave it that cool element. What you think of that first Underworld?
I enjoyed it. Like you, I saw it in theaters, and I was sure. Like, part of the reason I enjoyed it so much was because I was so sure that that wasn't getting a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was kind of the way. Well, because like that was kind of the way they did it back then. Was look, we're gonna make a movie, and we might make more movies like this one if it gets popular, but we don't do sequels around here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I was on board for a sequel, but actually, they kind of set up pretty decent for a prequel because it was a lot of backstory. Like,
Yeah.
it was a lot of stuff that you ask questions, and a prequel could, answered all those questions. That's a good way to set up a prequel because you
Right.
got things that's why is this the way this is? And when you see the movie, it's like this is this way, this is that way, and you just ask to accept it. So then you can kind of, if you, in that way, you can go back and say, this is why this is that. This is why that's that.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, well, I don't want to know the answer. Like sometimes the way they set things up makes you curious about the answer. You know what I'm saying? If it's a good setup. And it was stuff like one vampire sleeps, or was it? Okay, yeah, one vampire
The
sleep.
Elder.
Right, how the whole world was set up. They kind of did some real good world building in that first movie, and you kind of wondered like, why is all these rules set in place for this? You know what I'm saying? And the Rise of Lycans were, meant to answer those questions, albeit the budget probably was a lot lower than the other two. So we doing Rise of the Lycans, and Rise of the Lycans kind of start off in I don't know what time period this is in. Is it like medieval times? You think?
Yeah, medieval, maybe dark ages, something like that.
Right. So it's time of knights and shit. So, and I'm guessing where were they at? Were they in like England? I know they was in Europe, but
Somewhere.
like
Well, because
maybe
like somewhere in Europe. Because
Romania
I
or
think
somewhere.
the first Underworld they were in Budapest,
Okay. Well,
but
anyway, they
I don't know
somewhere in
where they
Europe.
were.
Anyway, this is like the medieval times, somewhere in Europe or whatever. So we know the story. If you remember, if you saw part two, I believe they kind of gave you a backstory on Marcus and William, were the first vampire and Lycans, where one, it's like really one was bit by a wolf and one was bit by a bat, and this became the beginning of why they
Thank God
became.
nobody got bitten by a mosquito.
Was it? And you know what kind of bummed me out where William got turned into a Lycan. I mean, yeah, William got turned to a werewolf, but he couldn't turn back into a human. Why was Marcus able to control his power, and why not William can control? You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
That is a very good question, and the movie will never answer that.
And I was like, kind of under the impression it should have been more Marcus and Williams movie, but it was Lucian's and I forget her name, Sophia or something. It's supposed to be like a love story kind of thing.
Sonya.
Anyway, so so those were the first vampires, and they had this this prequel where they showed how Victor was a human that had was like a noble lord or something. He had like a lot of powers as a human, but he was dying of a disease. And Marcus made a deal with him. I turn you into a vampire, but you gotta give me all your resources and whatever, and we can rule together. Whatever. He's like, yeah, shit, whatever. I ain't got nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that's where the vampires got their powers from. But being their position in life. But you got the werewolf William was just a mad beast biting people, couldn't control it. Everybody he was biting couldn't turn back into a human. They was just so actually the vampires did the world a favor, right? They was actually the good guys. It's funny how they set them up as the bad guys, but it's like, okay, they are stopping people, because I mean, if they didn't control this, they would have probably took over. I mean, it probably, you know what I'm saying? The shit just kept spreading. Yeah. And once you bite somebody, it's like, okay, who are we supposed to not be rooting for? I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? We supposed to think the vampires are the bad guys, but they doing a good service.
It's evil aliens versus Nazis. Like either way we lose.
But the point is, they set they setting the vampires up as the bad guys, but they are stopping this spread of, and it's pretty much a disease like rabies or some shit. Like they stopping these these werewolves from spreading. Where at first they was just he'll bite people, and then they go to a whole town. A whole town turned to werewolves, so now they got to take all them out. And you wonder like why the vampires feel responsible. They had to clean this shit up because Marcus told what's his name? Marcus told Victor a lie that if you kill William or me, you'll die. So all vampires will die if I die, and all everybody will die if William died. Which I don't know why he believed that shit. It's like I'm like, man, fuck, I don't believe you. It's like, why you fall for that, Mark? I mean, why you fall for that, Victor? Come on, dude. So anyway, that was his way of not.
Look, let's be real. Victor ain't the most reasonable entity in these movies. Okay,
and we're gonna talk about that because his acting, Bill Nighy was his boy. That boy was doing Shakespeare in the Park, man.
He was chewing it up, bro. He was chewing it up.
So anyway, so this is where we get your main character Lucian, where Lucian is actually okay. I guess it was a pregnant lady that was bit, and Lucian was born a human. So this is how they evolved the Lycans, where they figured out, okay, this one can be human, and he can turn into a Lycan and control his power. That's the first time they learned how to use control or whatever. I was under the impression that William could control, but obviously he just evil. I mean, he's just a beast too.
Yeah.
So this is where Victor came up with the idea was, you know what, I could use these. So I guess everybody that Lucian bit could control their power, right? That's how it went.
Yeah.
Okay.
That or at the very least, that was the first time they could actually turn back.
Right. Turn back, but they had their mindset when they was actually Lycans. Like other Lycans, once they couldn't turn back and they couldn't control themselves. They was just ravaging beasts, right?
Right.
Originally, and when Lucian, whatever happened with him, it evolved them where they can turn back. They can control what they do, and they can turn back. And that made Victor came to the idea of if I can control them, keep them as slaves. They pretty much were slaves. They had these collars, kind of a cool idea, but it ain't no way you don't think that this wasn't gonna backfire on your ass. They had these
Right.
collars with silver in them, and of course, silver was they was allergic to silver. Anything silver would burn them and kill them or whatever. So they had these collars with actual silver on them, so they couldn't turn in the Lycans and or go against them.
Well,
There were,
that and but they were silver spikes, so like you turn while you wearing this, you know you dead.
right, I know. So I mean, I guess it was a it was a cool idea, but it was also like you wasn't gonna think that was gonna stay keeping them under control for long. But so Lucian was his number one guy. He had his number one slave, where he was a blacksmith, and they basically had them protecting them during the day. Which I'm thinking, like, if you won't let them turn, how can they protect you when somebody, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So did they take their collars out during the days, or you know what I'm talking about? Did they do that?
So that's the thing. That's the thing I don't get. Like I think they just I don't know if like they just don't let them turn. If that's what it is. Like, look, when the sun's up, y'all can grab some sticks and some crossbows and get up on the towers and whatnot.
Well, but why
Once
you
that
need a
sun go down-
Lycan? You know what I'm saying? Why do you need a Lycan if you don't let him use what he can do? You know what I'm saying?
Like they are, I think, supposed to be strong, a little bit stronger and faster than your average human. when
Even
they're
in
not
their human form.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, they're not as strong and fast as when they're transformed, and they definitely ain't strong and fast as a vampire, but they got a
Right.
little something.
I was under the impression during the day they let them turn into Lycans to protect them, and then then they put the collars back on. But it's like,
Right.
if you take the collar, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I turn on
Yeah.
you and kill your ass in your sleep? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
You remember how you whipped my ass till it bled last night, right?
right.
Nah,
So
player.
I'm trying to get the logic there. You know what I'm saying? Why not just make an alliance with them? But that ain't how things go in history. You know what I'm saying? Why not
Right.
just say, hey, instead of beating them and treating them like shit, why not just say, hey, work with us and be partners with us, and maybe we can they really?
It don't work like that, player.
Yeah,
This
one
ain't
guy
that
kind of
movie.
one dude suggested that. He was like, give them he said we can get some Lycans to do more things by treating them a little nicer, give them like a bigger room and a little more food.
You
No.
will not cater to these animals. Like, okay, first off, Bill Nighy, what was all that?
Yeah,
What was all that?
My mom, dude, I'm telling you, you ask him what time it is. It is noon. You know what I'm saying? That dude would just go bananas on everything.
Like, those blue contacts ain't helping neither.
I
Like,
know.
he looks like he is blown out of his fucking mind doing Shakespeare in the Park. And soon the sun shall be up, and then okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so the main story is Lucian fell in love with Victor's daughter. Victor's the head of the vampires. Lucian fell in love with his daughter. A forbidden love affair between between a Lycan and a werewolf. It could never work, but they loved each other anyway. That is how they explain everything. You know what I'm saying? It was like, oh my God, y'all need to just step back, and I need to know that y'all know this is stupid. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm feeling like y'all taking this way too serious. You know what I'm saying? When they play this movie out, it's like y'all actually believe that this is real Shakespeare or something. You know what I'm saying? Y'all need to do something to wink at the audience or something. Let me know that this is stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like,
So-
because and that's one of the things that kind of makes this movie a bit cringy for me is like you got all these actors in who are playing this up like it's some really meaningful stuff. You got Michael Sheen, doing his Spartacus impression,
Mm-hmm.
You got Rona Mitra trying her damnedest to play this character like this character is supposed to be Celine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just, and the
Uh,
only person I enjoy in this movie is what's his name, Tannis.
which one is that?
That's the one from the was he in the second?
Is
I
that the
think he
one
was in
that
the
was
second
getting the
one.
scrolls?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna talk
yeah.
about that.
Like he's the only person I like in this whole movie.
So we're gonna talk about that. But yeah, so they had this forbidden love affair, and which we know kind of from the first movie where they kind of tell the story. They had a love affair and they had a child. Well, she was pregnant, and that is why Victor killed her. But but they kind of like played out this story. So Lucian and her was like, they were sneaking off and being together or whatever. And what you think about the vampire and werewolf sex scene? Like they did like on this they was on the cliff, and the dude was like on the cliff like hanging like that was some good. Boy, that shit was so good. That boy didn't care if he's gonna fall off that cliff. Then that was some good shit. You know what I'm saying?
Look, all I'm saying is sometimes you gotta go to the ends of the earth to get you.
So I mean, I guess they have to show you that vampires and werewolves, when they have sex, they go at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It ain't just like a normal person, getting it in. Anyway, but go ahead.
Forget busting bedposts, man. They don't need them.
Yeah.
All they need is a little cliff face. That's it.
So I mean, this little uprising because once Victor kills his daughter, it started a uprising where Lucian. I wish I had some clips, man, because this shit's just funny. It's just how he tried to get his men's the way he get them riled up, the way he get everybody to his allegiance with these men. The way he just kind of like, oh, you are not animals, you are Lycans. Like all this extra posturing he was doing. I'm like, really, dude?
Like I'm looking at like the crowd, and like most of the actors in the crowd is like, whatever, bro.
I mean, it ain't the fact. It's the fact of the way he talking to his men looked like he was actually performing a play, and I'm like, this is supposed to be real. Like you really supposed to be talking to like real people, right? It's like you're not performing, but okay, whatever. It's back in the day. Maybe they was over dramatic, but everything was over dramatic.
Like there's that, and not helping things are like when he goes and gets the allegiance of the wild Lycans out in the world.
I thought he only took the Lycans that was all enslaved.
No, because there's a bit there where he walks into the cave there where all the transformed Lycans are.
Yeah,
and those are the what they call the children of William, the wild ones.
So he got them under control then.
Yeah, for whatever reason they decide they obey him. They never explain why that is.
Because they. Go ahead.
But like, there's just like my entire feeling about this movie is just when you catch that scene of him realizing one of them is standing right next to him sniffing him, and he has something of an oh shit look on his face, like this.
I didn't think this through.
It's like, you know what? I may not have thought this through all the way. Why don't I just leave and I'm gonna come back later? Like that could have easily been the end of his part of the movie.
Credits roll. But no, okay. So then you got a couple of little small characters like Race. I think his name Race. Rave or whatever. The big black dude. Everybody know the big black dude with that deep voice.
Kevin Griveau.
Right, I heard he wrote a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, he's one of the co-creators of the entire franchise.
Right, and that's interesting because I thought he was just the muscle. I wish he'd write more for his character then, because in this movie he didn't do shit for real. And I was like, so you pretty much is his number one guy, and you saw. So we get to see when you first got turned to a Lycan, whatever, and it was like, okay, you've been with Lucian since day one. I feel you. I did like, I was like, he was kind of like fighting the Lycans like before he got turned, and the dude was like, oh, this is a gift. He's like, You got to be crazy. A gift, it's a curse. But I did like some of that, some of the
like
history of that, but it
I
wasn't
do
too
love
much.
like once you get to a certain size, it don't matter who got superpowers or not. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Yeah,
gotta try to keep his ass down.
right. So, they got a little backstory on how they, became friends or whatever. It wasn't much. They could have wrote a little more there for, what
Their
they wanted
cells
to.
just happen to be next to each other.
I mean, yeah, and then it's the fact that oh, you gave my freedom, thank you, or whatever. That's cool, and Lucian, the whole uprising and rebellion, they handled that like real quick. It was more
Yeah.
of the little love story between Lucian and I think her name's Sophia,
Oh yeah.
and but the whole uprising was like 5 minutes. Like some Lycans escaped, and you said he got some of the wild Lycans to work for him. I'm guessing, hopefully, if you care about the story, he maybe bit them and maybe got them to turn back human. I don't know, or just whatever.
The movie doesn't even care, bro.
Right now, at that point, it was like, man, let's just get to the action. Now we could talk about some of the action in the CGI, where originally in those original movies they used a lot of practical effects. They used a lot of practical effects where guys in suits and they was on like these little stilts and all this stuff to make the Lycans look a little taller, but make they have like they had hind legs and they was like had men in suits walking on stilts or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was a cool effect and it looked real. So now in this movie they use all CGI on the Lycans. Woo! What did you think of what that looked like?
So like one thing, like I think they may have had maybe two prop Lycans, like either like an actual animatronic set piece, or just like some like a little bit of like just a head made for the camera.
You talking about in this
Well,
movie?
in this one, like
Yeah.
they didn't use them very much.
Right.
For the most part, they tried to use. I'd say it was like 99% CGI, and it looks like somebody's throwing some wet coats around, like some wet fur.
Now you
coats
can say this
that-
movie could be dated, but this movie was made in like 2009, I think. So
Yeah.
by 2009, your CGI need to be a little better polished than what I saw.
Yeah.
Because I don't. I'm like, okay, I remember thinking this movie was forgettable, but I don't remember the CGI looking that bad. And I look like they kind of use the CGI on the transformations a lot for when they turn to werewolf. And it was real bad. Just look, once they turned to a werewolf, it turned to a fucking cartoon. And I was like, what?
like
Stop it.
Even the movement plates on the CGI,
Right, the way
like,
they moved and all that, just it
like
didn't
I
look
don't
good.
even think they completed all those animations. I think they just used some fill-in algorithms because like some of them, like when they're coming over the wall, they're clearly like they didn't even try to weight them into that scene. It's just a wet fur coat flying over the wall and then it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking like, honestly, y'all could have gave me a movie where they said, oh, we going to do Lycans and werewolves. We're going to rise of the Lycans. We got to show more Lycans. Y'all could have gave me a movie with less Lycans in it just because you didn't have the budget. But, they tried or whatever. But that was definitely the points off. Like, the CGI was bad.
I would have been so fine with them just saying, okay, look, we'll have maybe 2-3 Lycans tops shown as full on transformed Lycans, and that'll be like one at the beginning when we show William, one like maybe one in the middle for like somebody getting attacked by Lycans,
Right.
and then at the end when Lucian transforms to fight Victor, and that'll be that.
Right. Yeah, they should have used it more sparingly because it took away from your movie, such as it was. So yeah, and then we get to finally see this whole final fight with Victor and Lucian, and because we always heard about it, and they always kind of in the movie they kind of played Lucian as the villain in the first movie, and then they kind of did like a little twist at the end where Lucian actually was the good guy, Victor was the bad guy or whatever. So they kind of they played that up. So it was this funny moment at the end where Victor getting all this gear on, getting ready to go out to battle. He's like, Lycans about to attack us. You know what I'm saying? We about to do this shit. You know, he's rallying his men up. He's like, hey, you know, it's time to do what we do. You know what I'm saying? It's time to put these damn Lycans in their place. You know, we are the elite. You know, let's go out there and beat their ass. Now, y'all going out there. I'm going to be out there in a minute.
But because I could have given him props for just being that kind of dude if he had just stayed inside. But like, he walks out with them. All right, y'all got it. And he slinks his way back in.
Man, dude, and I ain't trying to give away the ending, but fuck it. It's funny as shit. Man, when this dude talking so much stuff, he doing all this posture. He looking like all this bravado, like he's about to go out there and handle business. I think he about to go out there and just start snapping necks, cutting heads off. That boy go out there, look at those Lycans. No, they turned around.
He was feeling real froggy until he saw all those Lycans come along. He's like, all right, men, I'm going to go secure something.
Yeah. You want some of this, old man? No. That's what. Hey, they turned around. They was like, where's Victor? They saw, look, did he go through the sewer grade or something? Well, we ain't got to talk in detail. Let's just say he was on the front line. While they fighting, they turn around and look for their chief, and that boy was gone.
When your general walks back into the base and starts taking off his uniform in the middle of a battle, you know he ain't for that fight.
No, he jumped in the car and was like, hey, if they had a car, you'd be like,
look, let me get these patches off before they think I'm on your side.
They turn around, hey, they had no car, but you heard. That boy hopped on the horse, was like, I'm out. Give me your fastest horse. I'm out. But anyway, so I mean, they had a last little fight. Lucian catch up to him, and he's like, they had a little final fight or whatever. What you think about that final little fight?
It was the thing that happened.
Exactly.
The choreography wasn't nothing to talk about for real. It was just, we need to eat up time before we get to the end so we get the full runtime.
Right. I mean, in movies like this, you got to have your final fight between the main protagonist and the main antagonist and the main protagonist. So whatever, we got that. Yeah. So anyway, it was a movie. It was overdid. This was the weakest movie of the whole trilogy.
Well, keep in mind.
Okay, I'm not including the last what the fuck is the Blood Wars? Yeah, I'm not even talking about that shit. I'm just talking about the original trilogy. That was just a cash grab. Sure. They couldn't even figure out what to do with the Lycans. They going bigger. He was just a bigger same shit, and they beat him the same way. It's like, man, what are you doing here? So anyway, yeah, it's the weakest movie out the three. It was kind of put together real. I think it was the budget. It suffered from a low budget. I'm gonna give it a rating. Suffered from a lower budget, and I think they got a little too ambitious with the CGI, because CGI just looked bad. All the actors was overdoing it with their lines, but it was entertaining though. It made it entertaining for me just to watch Bill Nighy act a damn fool, like the part where when somebody's acting a fool, when they talking and yelling and shit, and they hair get all messed up, like you take his hair's always looking cool, but he's yelling and shit, and then by the time he done yelling, his hair all over the place, like they just acting a fool by that time.
Because I do actually love the scene when the nobles come in to meet the vampires, and one of them starts telling Victor his business. And Victor forgets he's supposed to be cool. He run up and start turning starts shouting back at him. It's like, would anyone else like to say something? So we can handle this like gangsters, or we can get into some gangster shit. It's like, man, okay, he's a cartoon character. I can't even, bro.
So yeah. Like I said, it's an entertaining watch for not the right reasons though. It is not a great movie. It's the weakest of the original trilogy, and it looks like it was made on a shoestring budget considering what they
Yeah.
was trying to do. But like I said, it's entertaining watch. Not for the right reason. It can give you something. It can make you laugh at things that wasn't supposed to be funny. But in good conscience, I can't give it above a whack. It was not good. When I originally saw it back in the day, I remember liking it a lot better than I liked it when I just rewatched it. It's not. It's not excuse me. It is not. It didn't hold up to even in the short amount of time it was out. In like 9-10 years, it fell down like way down. So I give it a whack on my rating scale. What you give it?
You know what? I'm not. I can't. I'm not gonna give it a hot garbage. I'm not gonna do them like that because it is fun to watch, but like you said, for all the wrong reasons. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and echo that whack, man. Like as much as I enjoy like the vaudevillian overacting in this movie, there was no place for it. Like just
Well, you
like
know what? It made could have been just a boring movie fun though.
so like one thing I want to mention, right? So Annabelle had a budget of 6.5 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
This had a budget of 35 million.
Check the budget out. I didn't notice. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, look how ambitious they got. They tried to do things
Like
with
they
CGI
did too much.
and the transformation scenes. Like, yeah, I didn't need to do all that. I mean, honestly, if they just been more creative on gives us more suspense on the Lycans instead of just throwing a lot of CGI at us, that was their fault though. So I mean, what
Yeah.
you want me to tell you? And things like Annabelle, and ain't that's made by the what's the guy name that make those the Blumhouse? Ain't that's made by Blumhouse? So
Yeah, I
ain't nothing on
believe so.
Blumhouse over 5 minutes.
Right.
That's actually a lot for them.
Yeah. Right.
Like all those
Yeah.
horror movies are made on a shoestring budget. They make
So,
it
like,
work though.
I'm gonna tell you something that's kind of disappointing actually. So like I think Underworld, the first one was 20 something million,
Mm-hmm.
and both movies made about the same amount of money.
Well, I mean that makes sense because they put a lot more work into that
Yeah.
first movie.
And so it's like this.
By the time this movie out, they just cashing in on
Yeah,
the
that's it.
the the craze. They was cashing in on the name, the Underworld name.
Yeah.
But
That's
you know,
that's that film studio mentality though, man. Like,
yeah,
look, we'll throw money at it and we'll throw CGI on it, and we won't have to actually do any real writing.
yeah. All right, so that is our review for Underworld: Rise of the Lycans. I mean, if you saw the other two, you might want to check it out on Netflix if you feel like, hey, I want to complete this. But the other two was pretty good. I actually watched part two. If you want to get that in one day, we can get is that Evolution? Yeah, Underworld Evolution in. I ain't sat down and watched part one in a while. So we might just do a whole trilogy.
Might as well.
Yeah. So that's our review for Underworld: Rise of the Lycans. So we're gonna move on to another Netflix show we've been watching called